Hi, this is Neil Hopman here from Samui Mala, and my guest today is Dr. Thomas Goreau. Welcome, Thomas, to Koh Samui. You've been brought out here from Cambridge to a water symposium that was held last week on Koh Samui. Green Island Project, Samui Mala, and it's just some of the agencies that brought you out here to speak to the water symposium and shift the awareness here on Koh Samui regarding water and all of its implications, from how to catch it, how it flows through the island, what it does to the coral reefs around Samui. Can you give us a bit of an overview of the symposium and what sort of topics were covered and what people who couldn't make it to the symposium might be able to learn as a result of the symposium?
Well, I think people who miss the symposium to speak Thai would have graded a lot more than I would have, because I was the only person who didn't speak in Thai at that meeting, and I don't speak any Thai. So I was really watching the presentation on the board that people put up, and I was extremely impressed with the range and the logical order of the material they presented, even though I couldn't understand the language that they were saying. There was really, I thought, a very impressive audience of young people, mostly young people, but from different agencies that are involved with planning the physical environment of Koh Samui. The first speaker discussed the water catchment issue here and the massive erosion that happens, how the water just rushes down. He showed photographs of the flooding that happens and the landslides and erosion and riverbanks washing away and the mud in the sea. And he showed that very clearly, and showed that basically what we're doing here is really adequate for it, and he proposed using vetiver grass, which is the world's best erosion control grass, as a means of controlling that. There were also other presentations given on the water supply system here in Koh Samui, and I think, as everyone knows, there's not enough water. We've mismanaged the water, we've let the water run off and flow into the sea and get contaminated, so when we need clean fresh water, we don't have it. And so we really need to manage our whole system so that the rain that lands on Samui gets trapped and held in the soil and recharges the watershed instead of rushing out to sea. So there were a couple talks about that, but it was fairly clear that the water quality issue, the water quantity issues, come to the point that people feel their only solution is going to be to build large reverse osmosis plants, which is very expensive. It uses up a great deal of energy, and it's not cheap water. But essentially, Koh Samui is exhausted what's available here in Koh Samui. So there were some discussions about that. Then there were other discussions about how the misuse of the land has resulted in sewage and pollution problems in the water. There was one lady from basically the Ministry of Public Health who does routine water quality monitoring. As in many places, the data exists that there are problems in certain places and not in others, but very often these kinds of programs are designed to avoid finding the problems, in the sense that the places that are really dirty and really causing the problems, we don't go to them.
Okay.
So, and when you talk to people who run these kind of public health monitoring programs, what you realize in talking to them is that they realize the situation is far worse than the data that they present to the public says. And I think we got a little bit of a sense of that with this talk. Then there was a very interesting talk being given by a group that has cleaned up one of the most polluted rivers in Shaowing. And what they've done is really quite incredible. They took a place that was clogged with mud and garbage and filth and algae and slime and trash and everything you can imagine, and they cleaned it up.
Wonderful. Which
is really very impressive. They did it in a place, you just didn't think it would have happened, that anyone would have cared and have made the effort. Well, they did. It shows something of a critical mass of a group trying to improve their environment, and we need many more of them. So that was very impressive. And then finally, we wound up talking a bit about the marine issues and the coral reef restoration projects that are going on here in Koh Samui.
Which is your specialty.
Which is the biorock work. And we were emphasizing that in order for us to really try to bring back the beauty of the marine environment here, we've got to control what happens on land. We've really got to get vetiver programs going here and stop the erosion. We've got to clean up the sewage and stop dumping it in the ocean. At that point, then we have a real hope. So I think the sense that we got from this meeting was that there are people who are aware of the problems, there are people who are aware of the solutions, but there's no integrated planning and there's no funding to implement these solutions any kind of coherent way. That needs to be built, that needs to be developed, and I think that's really sort of going to be a political task ahead of whatever new local government, it gets in place here.
So the challenge is now that the solutions have been made available to the residents and the decision makers of Koh Samui is to act on those solutions. So organize people on the island, to educate people on the island.
We hope they do.
Yeah.
We hope they do. They need to educate, but they also need to have the power to, and the will to improve their own environment here. It's been difficult while this place has been administered as Suratani. Maybe now that it's locally administered, there'll be more seriousness about that.
And one of the themes that you keep on repeating when we're talking is the interrelationship between what's happening on the land and its impact on the water. And people living on islands throughout the world need to see this interconnection. Seems to be a general theme that you keep on reinforcing.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And so oftentimes people only see directly what's in their face, and by spending so much time under the water and on the water, it's really important that people understand that interdependence.
Yes.
Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing the results of the symposium, which it sounds like were very solution-oriented rather than pointing the finger at people who had done harm.
It was a real step forward, and really we need everyone in Samui to be more aware of all these points, and I'm not sure how we jump the gap to educating those people who are not in the room.
Well, this is one of those steps, isn't it, by letting people know who couldn't be there what they can do about it.
It was a very impressive workshop, and I think many more people would have benefited from learning about what happened there.
Well, thanks again for sharing the Water Symposium outcomes, and please be in touch with BioRock and the Coral Reef Alliance if you want further information about what can be done in terms of solutions, whether it's a funding involvement, whether it's a personal campaign to educate the people in your community, whether it's putting pressure on the hotels that you attend as guests. All of these things are active steps that all of us who are consumers and caring about the environment can do. So it's not just a symposium and event approach. It's actually all about what each one of us decides to do, given that there are solutions out there.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks again, Thomas.
Thank you.